conversation with Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erik, for being with us for a second year in a row. Everybody's talking about FDI coming in this country, and guess what? Probably your country is our prime candidate for this FDI. So can you give us a color about the current political and economic situation that you face towards Greece?
Yeah, sure. You know, obviously it was the Mitsotakis government won a second term handily, so they're in government, not in coalition. And so we expect the sort of market-based reforms that they are taking to continue. So leaving the politics aside, as far as people making capital investment decisions, that's a welcome. That's definitely a welcome outcome. You know, we're seeing some of our bigger companies increase their investments, whether it's Microsoft, Digital Realty, Google, on and on. I was just up at in Thessaloniki for the opening of the Chubb office, and they can't hire people fast enough. They had a growth plan that is already, they're already trying to exceed it. So I think as far as FDI goes, the big guys are doing really well. I think the next thing that we expect is when Greece gets investment grade status, that can open up a lot more potential FDI from the United States, because a lot of these pension funds and other sort of institutional investors, by their bylaws, cannot invest in countries that are not investment grade. So we hope when Greece gets that, and we thought maybe, at least in the embassy, we thought maybe it would be right now. I guess not. But it is going to happen because Greece's fundamentals are too good. And so I think when that happens, that's going to open up more interest in FDI. And of course, we've got a lot of private equity investors in Greece. They don't really tell us much of what they're investing in or what their numbers are, because if they did, they wouldn't be making money. So there's a lot of interest in Greece, and I think what you see is some of the more sophisticated investors, the big companies, and then the private equity folks who want to make 7, 8, 10% are already here and will continue to be here. So as far as we're concerned, Greece provides a great opportunity for U.S. FDI.
Okay, from the companies that you're talking to, are there any specific sectors of our economy or companies within sectors that are in the prime targets of this FDI? And how hot do you believe that Greece is currently on the U.S. investment scale from 1 to 10?
I'm going to answer this like a diplomat.
It changes every year.
Yeah, I'm going to change the subject. No, I'd say about a 7. You know, for our big investors, it's a 10. There's no doubt about it. For the Pfizers, for the all the ones I mentioned, they're extremely happy here and looking to expand. You know, for smaller investors, it's much lower than that. There are challenges here. I think this government has done a really great job in facilitating, the fast track if you invest X amount. But for people under X amount, Greece isn't super attractive, at least for American firms. Greece is far away, for one. And two, if you aren't, a big investor, sophisticated investor, you have to deal with issues with the judiciary, bureaucracy, a number of these other sort of barriers. So on a whole, I'll put it as a 7. As far as specific sectors, obviously the tech sector, one of your previous speakers mentioned, like facilitating, incubating startups, and, another one of your panelists mentioned Portugal, Lisbon. I know this Greek government is looking at doing something like that, either in Athens or Thessaloniki. We in the embassy are working on some of these things. I can't announce anything because there might not be nothing to announce. But there is some real interest by U.S. firms in that. Our ambassador is really interested in making connections with firms that are interested in biotech. We think that's a real opportunity for growth here and something that we could match what Greece can provide with U.S. investors. That's the other important thing. Greece has to have what's attractive for U.S. investors and U.S. industries. And I think this government has been also really good. They're not, from what I've heard, previous governments are looking at, oh, this is a Greek American who made it good in America, like come back and invest in Greece. And the Greek American was like, the reason my father left Greece was because, we wanted to make money in America. This government's not looking, that's not their outlook. They want Fortune 500 companies. They want listed companies. They want institutional investors in areas of growth. And so that's what we're focused on. That's what our potential investors are in right now and are looking to expand into.
Thank you. You mentioned parts of northern Greece. So after the invasion in the Ukraine, the urge for Greece to become a kind of energy hub towards Europe from the rest of the world is becoming more and more important, I would say. But how do you perceive that as establishing it as a hub?
Well, Greece is going to be an energy hub. It already is taking those steps, whether it's the FSRU in Alexandroupoli that's going to provide exports, including U.S. LNG, to Bulgaria and points further north. One of the things we spend an awful lot of time on in the embassy is trying to develop Greece and help Greece become a bigger energy hub. Part of that's gas through the IGB, and then potentially through the Trans-Balkan pipeline, which reaches Moldova. Moldova has actually purchased gas from Greece through that pipeline, Ukraine, and then points further into Europe. One of the challenges is you don't build infrastructure without having off-takers. And so we're working with our embassies to try to make connections with Greek developers who are looking to sell additional gas. Also, the interconnectors. There are a couple potential interconnectors from North Africa to Greece. I know this Greek government, the new minister we met, Minister of Energy, is talking about a sizable offshore wind development in the Aegean. And so we're also working with the Greek government and your IPTO, ADMIE, to look to facilitate conversations that allow Greece to export green energy to Italy, Bulgaria. That's easy because they're in the EU, or easier. Yeah. And then also we're working with your government right now to establish better connectivity with, say, Albania, North Macedonia, Kosovo, and points further. Because Greece is going to start producing way more energy than it can consume, which is a good thing, but the energy has to go somewhere. So we're working with your government to make that happen. And it's another example of many, many examples of a win-win, where what Greece is doing and their policy approach and what we'd like to see happen are basically the same.
And investing outside one's country always comes with some complaints, difficulties, stressful situations, etc. So what's your feedback from US companies on the drawbacks that they face while investing this FDI coming into Greece? And what's the pressure towards our government to make things more pleasurable?
We don't get a lot of negative feedback, actually. And this is very different than, say, a previous tour in Mexico, where we got a lot of feedback, and most of it was negative. And then Russia, where it was all negative. Our investors their mindset is we want to work with this Greek government to push things forward. They see this government, even the previous government, as willing to do some reforms in Greece to encourage investment. So when our companies have issues, and usually it's something bureaucratic related, where they're not getting their tax receipts in time, or their VAT back, or permits, and we go in and we talk to the ministry, and the ministers or the staff would just go, okay, we'll work on fixing it. So I think they understand, or how we see it, is you have a government that's really trying to implement some pretty monumental reforms and really change the way the Greek economy works. That's easy to think it, but you have to bring that culture along with you, and that's a lot harder. And so the culture and how the normal way of doing business in Greece hasn't caught up to the ambitions of the government. And so there's a disconnect there. But I can't even think in my over 2 years here where we had a complaint from the government and the government wasn't very responsive. And now the answer isn't always yes. The answer is not like, okay, America, we'll do what you want. That's not it at all. But what we found is they've been very willing to sit down with our companies and try to work out a reasonable solution. And that's all we can ask for as far as partners go.
Perfect. Now, in a month or so, the U.S. is going into a pre-election year.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah. Do you think that this pre-election campaign would in any sort derail any FDI towards Greece, or does it really have any impact at all?
I don't think so. As far as any sort of pre-election campaign, it's going to be mainly focused on sort of China, Mexico to a certain extent, kind of our major trading partners where there's some policy disagreement within the two major parties as how to approach those two. As far as Greece goes, everybody loves Greece. And it is Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the aisle in Congress. I think the previous administration was really like Greece. I think our former secretary came here 2 or 3 times. They joke our current president is Bidenopolis because he's so pro-Greece. So I don't, as far as relationships broadly, I think it's still going to be very positive. Just whoever ends up winning, and economically, I don't think you're going to see any change because at the end of the day, people looking to invest in Greece are looking at the fundamentals. They're not looking at what one political party or other political party in the United States says about it. So I think you're going to continue to see an upward trend. Greece is going to run a budgetary surplus. Tax receipts are always, for the last, 6 quarters or, exceeded expectations. And, I think Greece's biggest challenge right now, and I'm glad you guys are having this forum because you're all ambassadors for the Greek economy in one way or another, is to try to get people to see what's in front of their eyes. Because you still have a lot of, at least in the United States, among certain policymakers and businessmen, they still think of Greece as almost having to leave the Eurozone. And that's old news. That's not what's happening here. And as I said earlier, some of the more sophisticated investors, their eyes are this big when they look at opportunities in Greece, and we just got to sort of bring the rest along.
And a last question. There's a lot of crowd looking at our ports, whether that's Piraeus or Thessaloniki or any other one. So it's a gateway towards non-European commodities coming into Europe. Yep. Or products, machinery, etc. How do you see this crowded trade in the near future?
Well, one of the things, and we speak with our Bulgarian colleagues, and when Bulgarians come down, they generally like to speak to us about better connectivity. And I think one of the things that through RRF funds, through Greece's commitment to improve rail links and sort of digital links and electricity links, Greece stands to really sort of benefit because it's a direct route. But that infrastructure needs to be built. Now, what comes into ports and what doesn't is sort of not necessarily something we can weigh in on, but it's something that the Western Balkans countries really would like. You mentioned Ukraine before. That's going to take a long time to unravel. And Russia does not play by the rules. They're bombing grain facilities right now. They're trying to impose maximum pain on Ukraine. And so one of the priorities of my government, and something we work on a lot in the embassy, is trying to develop these alternatives. And these alternatives, by and large, are through Greece. You've got the Bosphorus Right now, whether it's Thessaloniki port or Alexandroupoli, you can move things to, say, Romania in like 3 days faster than you can do by going through the Bosphorus or more. And so if this gets developed, that lessens Russia's ability to menace commerce in the Black Sea. It lessens, delivery times, and it's going to allow for economic expansion, both in Alexandroupoli, Thessaloniki, in northern Greece, more broadly, by virtue of increased trade. And so that's something I know your government's very keen on developing, and that's something that we're looking to see where we can help, whether it's through our Development Finance Corporation, maybe providing some assistance, but more we're looking at private actors who are looking to invest or participate in tenders to develop some of this stuff. So that's another thing that we really have our eye on. And, I'll just say it's my last 2 posts, Mexico City and Moscow. We weren't working together on like really interesting things. Like I come to my office in Greece and we're working on energy transition or energy exports or developing ports and developing connectivity, all these positive things. So it's really a pleasure to be here working in Greece because the partnership is just, at least from our perspective, fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.